Hey everyone, my name's Yvonne Villarreal. I'm a reporter here at the LA Times, and joining me today is Noah Emmerich, who plays FBI spy hunter Stan Beeman. Thanks for joining us today.
Great to be here. Thanks for having me.
You know, part of me, I just feel like Stan he needs a hug so bad.
Oh my God, does he? Can we do that?
Can we hug,
Can we do
please?
that? Oh. It's been such a long season. Oh my God.
What has happened to your character?
He's just been left out to dry. He's been hung out to dry a little bit. I mean, he just gets squeezed from every side.
I mean, last season was a lot, but I mean, this season he was, juggling his family, juggling his relationship with Nina, and then he's got that weird friendship with Philip. And so, I mean, talk about just what a roller coaster this season has been.
You know, it is. It's funny if people touch upon that, and I'm glad that they see it, because I definitely feel it living inside of his skin. You know, he's a very isolated man. He had a partner in the beginning of the show. His partner got killed. Hasn't been replaced, so stands on his own there. He's been away for 3 years before the season begins, doing undercover work, so he's clearly estranged somewhat from his family, from his wife and son. He moves to a new city, Washington, D.C., starts a new division within the Bureau of Counterintelligence. So he's really a kind of a fish out of water to some degree, and he's really, struggling to find himself. I mean, I think he's not lost in terms of his work. That's the one thing that sort of bolsters him and gives him purpose and direction. But outside of the job, he really is struggling.
Do you feel like he's out there all on his own, in a mental island by himself?
I think to some degree, yeah. He's very isolated. He doesn't have any. I mean, the closest person he has to a confidant is a Russian spy, that he's turned and has fallen in love with, Nina. And if that's your closest confidant, then something's wrong, because he can't. There's no one he can really trust. There's no one that he can really trust, except for his wife. For whatever reason, their relationship is almost at the most painful of all places, where they don't even fight anymore. It's just sort of surrendered to the abyss between them, and it's.
I want to talk more about that, but first I want to talk about. I mean, you're known as that guy. I've seen him in that movie.
Right.
I know him from that, or we've seen you Beautiful Girls, The Truman Show, and you initially did not want to play Stan Beeman, right?
I did not. No. Well, I was really wary of doing. I would love to do. I was looking to do a television series, but I was. The thing that's ominous for an actor about signing on to a series is that you don't know how long it's going to go, and it could be the next 6-7 years of your life. And for whatever reason, I've seemed to have played a lot of law enforcement officials in my career.
You're good at the badge
it's almost
showing.
I feel like sometimes I'm a cop, even when I'm not working, and I just really wanted to get away from that. So one of my sort of marching orders that I had for myself was I love to do a series, but I don't want to do it if I have to carry a badge or a gun. And the first thing I read in the pilot episode was, Stan Beeman, FBI, badge and gun. I thought, I just don't want to get stuck doing that for too long. But my friend Gavin O'Connor, who was directing the pilot, who's a director I've worked with on a bunch of films, called me and said, I don't understand. I heard that they were interested in you for this show, and you weren't interested back. And I said, well, I don't want to carry a gun for 7 years. He said, I think you have to read the script more carefully, because it's not a procedural. It's not about guns at all. Their guns are there, but it's really about the characters.
Right.
So I actually read it really for the first time after having spoken with Gavin, and I realized, wow, this show is actually not at all. It's not at all about external procedural mysteries. It's about internal mysteries, which is what's the most interesting thing for me as an actor.
Well, and look at the perks you get with this affair going on. That's not too shabby, but I mean,
the fictional love life of my characters has been amazing.
It's amazing. Yeah. All the guys are talking about it over there.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Sorry, guys. It's just fictional.
When you first read that Stan was going to go through with this affair, I mean, did you think he wouldn't do this, or could
I was startled.
Yeah.
I mean, I could smell it coming. It seemed clear they were sort of setting it up. I thought maybe by the end of the first season or the second season, there would still be, the tension would be there, and we would be wondering if it was going to happen. But it happened pretty quickly, and I was startled. I thought, I mean, that's the other thing is, you go into a series, you don't really know which way your character is going to develop. I imagined I'd have this great relationship with my wife. I thought I was coming back from these 3 years undercover, and we were going to reunite and take on DC together, and we'd have this great. And Susie Meisner, who plays my wife, is a wonderful actress I love working with, and I imagined him as this sort of hearty, all-American, you know, FBI hero who was going to rekindle his romance with his wife and his son, and then I read episode whatever it was, you know, early on in the midway through the first season, and it said he kisses Nina, and I thought, what? Like, this is so not how I imagined it going, but it makes sense too. I mean, I thought it was also, it's been an amazing storyline to play. There's a lot of fun in that relationship.
Right. Because I mean, he's supposed to be the moral center here, and now we see like these weird.
Right. Well, that's one of the things I love about the show is that, you know, there are actually no good guys and bad guys in the show. I mean, you know, the heroes of the show are working to bring down America. Like, so the idea that, I remember when we
isn't that
when
so
we were
twisted
filming,
that like
thought,
we're rooting for the spies?
Yeah,
it's
how
weird.
can you have the heroes be Soviet spies working against America? And certainly, I don't think 15 years ago we could have had a show like viably on the air that people would connect to. But the thing about it that's so amazing, that Joe Weisberg, the creator who I spoke with before, you know, signing on, and Joel Fields, who's joined him, and they run the show together. They're interested in the human beings in those roles. They're not interested in the roles. Whether you're a Soviet spy or an FBI man, who are you? How do you handle the compromises, the challenges of your job between family and work? How do you handle your sense of identity in the world? I mean, there's sort of universal themes that they're exploring with this great, exciting backdrop of the Cold War. But the actual, whether the side that you're on in that Cold War or the job that you have within that Cold War are secondary to your humanity. And that's what makes it, I think, such a compelling, interesting show, certainly to act and hopefully to watch as well.
Well, and you're more used to the film, so was the fact that things are constantly changing for your character and you constantly have to adapt, how was that sort of for you? Like,
yeah, that's a very different world, you know. In film, you know the entirety of your character before you even start filming. You know, you can do all the homework you want. You can figure out the beats of the journey. You know where the character is going to end up. You know the entirety of the story, of course. And in television, you don't. I mean, you sign on to a 7-year contract having read one 48-minute episode.
Right.
And, you know, obviously, as we all know from watching shows, where they begin can often have very little to do with where they end up. So you're really... has a much more sort of improvisational, fluid, unknown dynamic that is exciting. And the other thing that it provides is an opportunity for dialogue between the writers and the performers. So you can have an input into the evolution of your character, and they can write to the strengths that they think are interesting about your work in that character. So it's a much more active, alive, unpredictable, evolving energy that is really invigorating and exciting.
Well, I guess that kind of speaks to my next question, but what's your favorite part about this character? Like, what aspects of him do you enjoy playing? Like, do you like him in the work aspect, or
I do.
Like him? Yeah.
I mean, I find the most interesting things to play are the interpersonal relationships. So pursuing a lead, it's funny because it's very different from what's fun to necessarily watch. The spycraft stuff can be really fun, but generally you're not really relating to. For Stan, I'm sort of reading papers or driving to locations or observing people, but I'm not interacting with them in the same way, which is more interesting as an actor to be interacting. But I love the fact that he has all these completely different dynamic relationships with his wife, with his boss, with his lover, with his neighbor. You know, there's a lot of Stan sort of as a utility infielder in some way. He goes to many different places within the story and the architecture of our show, and he gets to visit these different worlds. So that gives me a lot of variety as an actor. I love the contrast between the office work and then the home life, or even the love affair in the nest, in the lover's nest.
But I mean, the scenes with his wife, it's like this season, like, I have to get up from my couch and watch from, like, my kitchen because I'm so uncomfortable. And, like, it's so icy and not, like, sad. And how is it for you being in those scenes?
It's exactly like that. I mean, it really does take its toll. It's so sad. As I said, you know, they're not even in a place where they're fighting anymore. They're just sort of living in the distance and the irreparable seeming loss of this love. And it's so... I have a great dance partner in that world with Susie Meisner, who is amazing. We always, you know, we have a great time together on set. I wish we could have some of that great time on camera.
On camera,
But it does leave you, you know, it's hard to wash that off sometimes, just because I mean, the job is to enter that space, and we all know that space. I mean, we all know that space in a relationship where things are tough, and it's not working. And they have such a long history together. They've had so much time together. They have a son together. They've seen so many life changes together, and for them to be here. You know, I still have hope that there's some hope there, because as we saw at the end of the second season, things with his lover are probably over for all intents and purposes. So I still have I harbor some hope that maybe Stan and Sandra can find each other again. But it does. I just come home and I feel sad sometimes, you know, and then you have to remind yourself. It's only acting, and it's, you know, and we get along great. But you know, that is one of the trickier things about the job, is it does sort of permeate your soul to some degree if you live, especially with a series where you're spending months and months and months inside the character.
Well, that scene where she's telling you, like, she's packing up and she says, "I'm going to my mom's," but it's really she's going with her new lover.
Yeah.
And you're just kind of like, what? And she leaves, and you like cry on the bed, and I was like, yes, cry. Show some emotion about her.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, Stan is so reserved. I mean, he really doesn't show a lot. He's a very reserved character that's very hard to read. There's a stoicism to him, and a stillness to him that can be quite challenging, because so the moments where he's allowed to show, I mean, obviously more that moment that he's alone, so it's easier to let the wall down a little bit. But yes, I feel the same way when I read the scripts. I'm like, give something, let me show, because I think he's in so much pain. I think he's feeling so much, whether you can see it or not. Hopefully there's intimations of it, but he doesn't wear his heart on his sleeve at all.
We need to get him a therapist.
He definitely needs a therapist. That would be, you know, if it were the 90s, you might have one. That's a sequel.
Well, let's talk about your lover, Nina, on the show. Did you expect, I mean, I was kind of wondering, is he or is he not? What is he going to drop off there? And then we see it's the note. I'm sorry. Were you wondering, will he betray his country, or did you kind of know? I know him.
I mean, it touches upon our conversation about series versus film. You know, I thought I knew for sure, but in television you don't ever know, because the writers can surprise you. So I had a strong sense of Stan's integrity and his commitment to his job and his, I mean, really, it's sacrifices he's made in his life for what he thinks of as his noble commitment to his country and to his service. So I had trouble imagining him compromising that for his own personal gain, because so much of his life is his job comes first. I think it's cost him quite a bit, and I think he has pride in that, not in the cost, but in his commitment and his integrity. So it was hard for me to imagine him compromising that for Nina's and his relationship. Although I didn't know, you know. That's a funny thing, but we're sort of in very similar positions to the audience. We're just a few months ahead of the audience, but the scripts come in and they end on a sort of a cliffhanger or a big question, and we don't know how they're going to be answered until we get the next script, which is, you know, we don't get them all at once. We get them throughout the course of the season. So I had this very similar, probably, feeling that maybe you had about what is Stan going to do.
Did you like what he ultimately ended up doing?
I think so.
Yeah.
I say I think so because I don't actually know what he did fully yet, because the show, you know, we don't know where it's going to go. I have fantasies about him. I mean, we see Nina drive away in that car.
Yeah, but we don't know.
We haven't seen her take off on a plane. We don't know what Stan has up his sleeve. I mean, it certainly seems like that may well indeed be the end of that storyline.
We don't know.
Or it may not. So when you say I'm happy with what he's done so far. I have some thoughts about what he might do next, but
what are those thoughts?
They're not valid, sadly. They're just fan thoughts. I mean, as a
we
viewer.
Can have fan thoughts.
I mean, I still imagine him somehow. I mean, I like to think of him. I think we all like to think of ourselves in our lives as, oddly enough, actors, I think, tend to think about their characters. It conflates that sense of self. It's hard not to identify myself with Stan.
Right.
So I think we like to think of ourselves as making the right choices and being heroic and having integrity and not being selfish. So and not hurting people. So you know, I think Stan would do everything within his power to to protect Nina, to save Nina, if he can, without compromising the security of the country.
Right.
So maybe there's something he could come up with. I don't know what. But
do you think he really loved her, or was it just one of those things where, you know, this is something new and you're bringing something out of me that I haven't seen in a while? What do you think it really was? Guy
well,
thing?
I'm partially wary to discuss my own thoughts about that because I think it's so important for the audience,
so you could draw
and their opinions are as valid as mine. So I don't. It's not like I have the voice of authority actually on this. But I've always saw Stan's simpatico resonance with Nina as we touched upon his loneliness and isolation in the world in which he lives. I think Nina is someone who, although she's from the other side of the war, and I think there's some mutuality of understanding between them. They both live in this world of shadows, this world of secrets and lies. And I think his wife, from whom he's quite estranged and unable to share much of his work with because it's, you know, security issues, he can't even talk about it. With Nina, somehow he can talk about his life in a more oddly open way because there's a mutual understanding of each other and the limitations of that truth as well.
And they have an apartment.
And they have an apartment, yeah, a nice gift from the boss.
Yes.
So, you know, I feel that there's authentic reflection. I think we all need to be reflected in life to feel seen and understood. And I think in some way Nina offers Stan that understanding and that perception that is missing from his life elsewhere. So I think I do believe that there's. I mean, I do believe that there's real feelings there, and I do believe, you know. It's hard to define love and what love is. That's another conversation. But I think there's real feelings there.
Well, and in the first season, it was kind of like Stan was like hot on the trail of Elizabeth and Philip, like going into the garage and wondering, is something going on?
Right. That was the end of the first episode.
Yeah, the end
I was like, how are you going to do this for the whole season? Like,
Yeah.
Right.
And then so this past season, it was like a lot more about the relationship with Nina. Were you kind of like, how are we going to do this? Or did you find it interesting that they deviated from...
I thought it was great, in fact. I mean, one of my concerns was, how are you going to walk this line? Because Stan's a very intelligent man.
Like, holy crap.
He's intelligent, he's on the case, he's aggressive, he lives right next door to the people, unbeknownst to him, that he's pursuing. By the end of the first episode, he's sneaking into their garage because he has suspicions about them. How do you maintain that tension without him either becoming an idiot or ending the show by catching them? And I think they've done an amazing job of that. I mean, we haven't stayed on that one track, otherwise it would get repetitive, I think, and dull. So they, as it is in life, you know, sometimes people say, how can Stan be so stupid? They live right next door to him. But I don't know what that means. Lots of people live next door to him, you know. It doesn't mean they're quite good at their job. They look like a normal couple running a travel agency. I don't think the proximity of residence it diminishes from his intelligence at all. But if he were overly suspicious and he kept looking and he kept sneaking into the garage, then it would be sort of bumbling.
But you could find someone of any, like, you could get something from anyone and think they're a spy.
Right, exactly.
Well,
that's one of the things about about this world, is that everybody could be a spy. You know, everybody could be the illegals.
Okay, before we get to fan question, I was going to ask you about that. Like, are you, when you're outside, are you like suspicious that everyone's a freaking spy? I was at the park yesterday and I was like, that guy sat there and then that guy suddenly sat there. Like, are they exchanging things? Is this a drug deal? Or are they spies? Like, are you looking at people thinking...
Yeah, definitely. It definitely changes your perception of the world living inside that paranoid point of view. You know, Joe Weisberg, who was in the CIA, who wrote the show. The pilot. We had a training session with Joe, and he taught us some counter surveillance measures, and you know, just to see how, if someone's following you on the street, or how to follow someone without being seen, or little things like that. And once you learn the craft of that world, it's hard not to look for it everywhere. You know? And it's fun. New York's a great place to practice because, you know, I've actually done that. I've actually followed people and thought, let me try and follow this person for a little while and see if they notice.
That's super creepy.
It's so much fun. It's so much fun. I only have one restraining order so far, but I've gotten better at it.
Nice, nice. Okay, let's get to a Twitter question. Now I can't like make this work. Okay.
Wow, they come in. That's neat.
Okay, Brent on Google Plus wants to know, I'm not sure what to make of Richard Thomas's character as a boss. Would you like to work for someone like that in real life?
I think so. You know, we had some interesting bumps this season where he
Mhm.
sort of unexpectedly was less understanding of Stan,
Mhm.
and somewhat maybe resentful of the mess that Stan had gotten him into. But overall, I think he's a compassionate, understanding, fair-minded, supportive boss.
Mhm.
So that's pretty good.
Mhm.
That's pretty good. I've had way worse, and I've had some better, but I would take Gad as a boss. And certainly, I love working with Richard Thomas.
I mean, the
I mean,
Waltons.
Richard
Are you
Thomas.
just like
Yeah.
thinking that all the time?
No, I'm
No,
not. 'Cause that would
just
be
me.
quite. That would be tough.
Okay, and then we have another from Michelle Buckman on Twitter. Were you surprised by Stan's actions in the finale? Or I guess we sort of talked about this. Or did you feel it was very in character? Where do you see him going in season 3?
Right. I wasn't surprised yet.
Yes, yeah. Like we said.
I think he would. I think he never would. I mean, my belief from the beginning is that he's never would compromise the security of the United States. What they were asking for was of such enormous gravity and importance to the country. I didn't ever see that going down.
What was a moment that you felt was like a whoa moment? Like I remember season 1, Safe House, when you're like doing the hamburger takeout order. It was kind of like, okay. Was there one this season where it's like you really see something in him or you felt was really powerful?
There wasn't a singular moment in the same way as there was in the Vlad episode, you know, the hamburger moment, because that was such a startling moment. But as we sort of touched upon somewhat, the scenes with his wife, even the scenes with Nina, where he's really so thoroughly fighting for a way out for them, his commitment and his devotion to protecting her and finding some alternative ending than what we actually ended up with, I think was moving to me. And then, you know, on the other side, his lack of effort. Sometimes the negative is as strong as the positive. His lack of effort with his wife, and I feel like there's much more to explore there. There's much more to be found out about this couple and what their dynamic is. I hope that we have, hopefully we'll have a chance to get into that.
And the son too. I mean, we see a lot of their kids, Elizabeth and Philip.
No, the son I miss terribly. I'm like, well, where is my son? You know.
You brought him the Rocky Horror Picture Show. I was like,
I know.
That's a cool
we're gonna
dad.
watch the movie. We're gonna have a great time. Nope, going to a friend's house. No, I hope that's really an area that's been unexplored completely. I hope that
get some action. How about? I lost my train of thought here, but. What were we going to say?
We were going to do another fan question from Twitter or something.
No, there was...
Oh, what was it?
Oh, the relationship with Philip. Is that super... Like, do you think he thinks this guy is, like, a cool guy to hang out with? Or do you think in the back of his mind he's, like, still has his eyes on him?
Stan
and Philip.
Oh, sorry. I thought yes, but Stan thinks he's a cool guy. Yeah, I think Stan is an amicable fellow. I think Stan is like a friendly, good neighbor when he has, if he's not being squeezed too much at work. I think he's interested in, having some bonding relationship.
He needs some bonding.
He needs some male friends.
Like, go play basketball.
He doesn't have a lot of friends, exactly. Last year maybe they were gonna play some hockey. There was a little hockey scene with Henry. I think Stan is authentically, interested and open to getting closer with Philip, and we had some sense of that this season. Hopefully there's more. I think that's a really fun area to be able to go to and explore. Philip, as we saw this season, is the only person he really can. And I mentioned confidant, there was actually, it's not just Nina, it's Philip. There's that one scene in the bar where he tells him about what's going on in his life, and you get a sense that this man is really thirsty.
He needs someone.
He needs someone to share with, and Philip is in the spot. And obviously, Philip knows more than Stan about Stan, and that's hard. That's hard for me as an actor, just because it's such an interesting situation to be in, where the other person is so much over you. But it's a lot of fun. I love working with Matthew, and people always say, "What's it like to work with Matthew and Karen?" I say, I don't get a chance to very often.
Very often.
We're sort of parallel universes, but whenever we do, it's always so much fun. Hopefully, maybe the families can actually have some more time.
Yeah, they've had a family dinner before. They should do that more often.
We had a barbecue. We had a dinner. We had brownies together. There's been some moments.
Well, and Elizabeth and Philip get a lot of the flashbacks. Do you think you guys your family or you in particular will get some of that?
I think that's a strong possibility.
Yeah.
You know, at the end of the first season, there was a lot of interest in what had happened to Stan
Mm-hmm.
in his undercover days with these white supremacists that we
Mm-hmm.
alluded to, and that one little ping left a lot of resonance
Mm-hmm.
somehow in the story for Stan, because he clearly has some sort of PTSD.
Mm-hmm.
He's clearly a disturbed man to
Mm-hmm.
some degree,
Mm-hmm.
and I think it'd be interesting to find out what happened to him. Although I'm not in any rush to find out.
Mm-hmm.
I think that questions are so valuable in story.
Mm-hmm.
Tension and of curiosity is so
Mm-hmm.
valuable. So
Mm-hmm.
I feel let's not dissipate that too soon. But
Mm-hmm.
I would love to learn about what happened to him and
Right.
where he comes from.
Right. Well, and we're seeing a lot of headlines about the Ukraine and Russia. Like, does that make you think about things differently, having been on the show? Like, do you find yourself examining things differently or looking at it?
It's a really interesting question. It doesn't make me look at things differently,
Mm-hmm.
but I think it may help impact the audience to look at things differently,
Mm-hmm.
because I think a lot of people who weren't alive in the 80s, who are
Mm-hmm.
hopefully watching our show, don't understand. It's hard for them to sort of believe the history of this antagonism between the
Mm-hmm.
Soviet Union. It's like it's just from the distant past,
Right.
you know. And this makes it so relevant now. Like, oh, wait a second, there seems to be some
Right.
oppositional energies between
Mm-hmm.
what's going on. I think it does frame the plot for our younger viewers. You know. It's good for the kids to watch. No, it's real. Pepperidge Farm. So yeah. I think it's interesting to like enliven that point of view, but
Mm-hmm.
I think for me it doesn't really. I mean, it's just scary for me a little bit
Yeah,
actually, because
yeah.
I did live through the trauma, some of the potential trauma of that, of the nuclear threat, of,
Mm-hmm.
of feeling. I was quite involved politically as a teen.
Okay.
So I was in touch with the fear of global
Mm-hmm.
thermonuclear war, and that's obviously not a threat right now, but
Right.
it just brings back some of that,
The
some of those
memories,
memories.
yeah. The show gets a lot of attention for its musical selections.
Yeah.
Do you have any favorites? Have you like pitched them a song we need to showcase, or?
I have a couple of times. I also think Nate Barr. I thought you were going to mention Nate Barr, who's our composer, who does an amazing job.
Oh my
I mean,
God.
the music is so good.
The title song?
Oh,
I want
yeah.
it on my phone. Yeah.
Yeah, me too.
Uh-huh.
I mean, I have it on my phone. It's
Okay.
a ringtone. So when the
Okay.
producers call me, it's that song. It's
Nice.
it's pretty
Nice.
awesome. I think the music of a show couldn't be overestimated on its impact. I think it's hugely important. And the theme song, I find particularly somehow it sets up the table.
yeah.
It sets the table for the show.
It makes you feel
and
it.
that song
Yeah.
is the score he did is so good.
Mhm.
The one album I've been plugging because that was such an important album for me in the early '80s, and I think so many of the songs would fit in the show great. Is the Synchronicity? Is Police?
Oh.
Any one of those songs would be so great.
Yes.
We just need more
we gotta
fans like
work
Pete
that
Townsend
in.
so they can give us good
Yes.
deals on the songs because they're expensive. But yeah, anything by the Police would be great.
I endorse that. How about being on a show that's considered smart TV? And I have to agree with this because I mean, when you watch TV, a lot of people think like you could do things while you're watching it, that it's like background.
Right.
With the Americans, like you have to sit there, and if you get up, you need to rewind.
Yeah, even if you watch it without moving, you may need to watch it twice. Yeah, because it's very dense and very intricate.
Uh-huh.
I think it's amazing. I mean, I think the bar in television has just been raised every year somehow. Then the demands of the audience and the sophistication of the audience has grown. It's no longer background noise. It really is an event, and I think that's great. I mean, it provides an incredible platform for more sophisticated, complex storytelling.
Right. Well, I'm gonna end things.
We're just getting started.
We're just getting started. I know. But I kind of feel like, I mean, we talked about Elizabeth and Philip a lot and how you don't have a lot of scenes with them, but they got a lot of attention for all the wigs that they wear. And I feel like you must have wig envy.
I'm wearing a wig right now.
I don't
That's how
believe
good
you.
it is.
But I brought this.
Oh my God! What? Oh no! I do have such wig. That's the wig I. That's the wig I have. Did you get you were in my closet?
So, I mean, if you feel inclined,
Wow,
mean.
this is serious. This is the LA Times. LA Times on La Cienega. I do have such wig envy. This is awesome. Can I see it on you? Because that's really how
I wanted you to wear it.
Oh, me?
Yes.
Like, that wouldn't be so good for Stan Undercover. I mean,
I don't even know how you start this.
Okay, let me see. How do you start? See, if I was a wig expert. I do have serious wig envy. I feel like that would be part of Stan's backstory.
Are you gonna get a wig? Do you think? Have you told them?
I think I might get a wig. Here, you do it like this.
Yes.
Now you know why I don't wear wigs on the show.
Stan Beeman. He could be a go-go dancer next season.
I would just, no, I'm not going to do that. We're not going to go there.
Well,
Okay.
Noah, thank you so much for joining us. That was a good sport of you to do that.
My pleasure.
Everyone, if you want to watch more, if you want to watch more of our chats, head to latimes.com. Thank you.